how quickly did it come out that he was addicted to women?
If I would have been paying attention and if I would have known before we got married, for one thing, our relationship was wrong. I just assumed all that would just deal with itself.
Okay, so you have been married to Steve for 40 years.
Almost 40.
Almost 40. Can you tell us about how you guys met?
Yes. I was at some friend's house, and they had come into some money, so they were thinking about buying some real estate, and he had known Steve earlier in his life, so he called Steve because he knew he was a real estate agent, and he came to talk to them about property, and I just happened to be there. And there was, for Steve, an immediate, like, I want to get to know her.
Not for you.
No. No, I was 18 and he was like 26, and he's like an old guy to me. He's like really an old guy. I wouldn't even consider someone like that.
Yeah.
He was real professional. He was wearing this really nice long leather jacket, drove a big old LTD, and yeah, not my type at all. And he was just way too old. So he pursued me for a little while, a couple months, maybe 3 months. Finally got me to agree to go out on a date with him, and it was an absolute disaster. The first date, it's like he wanted me to sit next to him in the car. I'm like, why? What do you want? So yeah, we got through the first date. I went out on another date. Eventually, he talked to me. I was becoming more interested, but real standoffish. And he invited me out to a long weekend to Santa Cruz. And so this started a whole huge thing in my life because I'd never done anything like that before. I'd never done a weekend with a guy before. And I still, at that point, wasn't even really sure about him. So I was in a lot of confusion, but I was excited. And so my whole thought process was, if I do this, to me, this is commitment. I'm not just going out for a fling. I wasn't a fling type person, you know. I didn't go out with guys. So it was like, to me, a very serious thing. And so when I agreed, what I was agreeing to in my mind and in my heart was commitment. It was very serious for me. So I went, and it was serious. And I think before I even went on that trip, I decided to love him. So going on that trip it just made it doable for me mentally and emotionally. So we got back from that trip. It was tremendous, and I moved in with him immediately.
So this was before you had any real thoughts about God or...
Oh no, I wasn't a Christian at all. No.
And he was not a professing Christian either.
Not then, not right then.
Right. So, but then later, you actually, through your connection with him, you got saved. Is that right? Well,
yeah, we moved in together, and he didn't do this before we moved in together or while we were dating. He waited till after we moved in together, and he started sharing the Lord with me. And it was like, why are you doing this? It just seemed so out of left field, and it caused a lot of turmoil for me. I was very interested in what he was saying, but of course, I didn't know this stuff then. At the time, all I knew was I was in a lot of confusion and a lot of turmoil. I was under tremendous conviction. I felt like God was following me everywhere I went, and it was like this kind of a mounting feeling of doom. that I didn't know the semantics. I didn't know the Christian talk. I didn't know any of that stuff. All I knew was I felt like if I died, I would go straight to hell. And I felt like death was imminent. It just was tormented. And that went on for a few months. And everywhere I went, it was like just questions about God. And Steve's talking to me about Jesus Christ. And so eventually he took me to church. That was March of 1979. He took me to church, and I don't remember anything about that service except for a song that we sang, and I'd never heard it before, never sang it before, He Lives. And there's one phrase in that song that says, you ask me how I know He lives within my heart. And when I heard that, it was like all at once, that became so real to me. That God, that Jesus, number one, this is what was so profound, that Jesus is alive. I never even I didn't know anything about the resurrection. I didn't really know much about the death of Christ, any of that.
Yeah, you didn't grow up in church.
No,
so you
not really. We went to vacation Bible school once in a while, but I wasn't raised in a Christian home. Yeah. So all at once, inside, God revealed to me that Jesus Christ had indeed risen from the dead, and that became, it changed me. In an instant, I was changed. I was like, man. And so...
this presents a problem with your life.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we kept going on, living together, and I kept going on being tormented, because I didn't give myself to Jesus. He just made himself real to me.
Okay.
And I knew now who I was dealing with and what was going on. So one day, and Steve and I, we weren't getting along great. He was, that's a whole nother story. But eventually what happened was and this was August 1st, I went to my sister's house, and there was a Baptist pastor there. And he started just right away, just sat me down and just started talking to me about Jesus and about Christianity and what it means to be saved. And he said these words to me, and these words were spoken to my heart months before, kind of regularly, that if I died, I would go to hell. So I'm sitting here, and this Baptist pastor is sharing Christ with me, and he said those words. He said, if you were to die today, Kathy, you would go to hell. And as soon as he said it, I knew it was God, and I knew my condition. And so he asked me, did I want to repent and give my life to Christ? And I said, yes, right now. And he prayed with me, and that was August 1st, 1979. And August 2nd, 1979, I left Steve. I packed up everything and I left him. And August 5th, 1979, I got baptized. And when I come up out of that water, that baptismal tank, I was brand new. The old had passed away, and I came up out of that water a new creature in Christ. It was amazing. Just like I woke up August 6th. I have all these dates. I know exactly where I was at. I know exactly, practically to the hour. I woke up on August 6th, and my world was different. The smoking was gone, the drinking was gone, the partying was gone, the filthy mouth was gone. Just that whole life, that person was gone. And somebody else was there, and that somebody else was totally in love with God. But bigger than that was God was in love with me, and I had never known love like that. It was so powerful. And radically converted from darkness to light. I was on fire. I was in love. I didn't need a man, didn't want a man, leave me alone. I actually felt, I didn't know anything about missionaries or anything like that, but I felt something very strong in me, like I wanted to go, but I didn't know go to what. Didn't know what to do with this faith. And I was, yeah, I would just share Christ with everybody. I mean, you couldn't get within 20 feet of me and not hear the gospel. I was just sharing Jesus with everybody. People were getting saved. People were hating me. It was just tremendous. It was an awesome, awesome experience. So me and Steve were not together anymore.
Yeah, how long were you separate? I mean, obviously you're married to him, so you met him again.
It worked, yeah.
So how long were you guys apart?
Well, I got saved in August, and that following January we were married. So
how did the whole thing start up again?
Well, let's see, was it me? I think I called him because I was so on. See, I had really moved on from Steve. I wasn't hoping or wishing or thinking anything.
Yeah.
I totally was moved on. But I knew now what he was sharing with me was something he needed. He knew about Jesus, and he had gotten saved in a Baptist church as a kid and had a pretty dramatic experience with the Lord when he was 16, but he backslid terribly. So he knew enough about the gospel and about Christianity. He wanted a Christian wife, but on his terms and in his time. So I got saved, moved out, left him, moved on with Jesus, and I really wanted him to know what I had come into because I knew he didn't have it. So I called him up and I just started sharing with him what Jesus had done for me and the life that was in me, and I wanted him to have it. Mm-hmm. And he was angry. He was pretty bitter with me and with the Lord. He felt like God had, took me from him.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't real happy. But at the very tail end of that conversation, he said, "Why don't you just pray whether or not we're supposed to be married?" And it was like, lightning bolt. It's like, why would I do that? I didn't say that, but that's kind of what went through my mind. But I did. I told him, I promised that I would pray about it. And so I started praying about it. I think that was in November. So from August to November, we were apart. And then I just kept praying about it, and we were talking. And yeah, so January 27th, 1980, we were married.
So after getting married, how quickly did it come out that he was addicted to women?
If I would have been paying attention and if I would have known before we got married, I knew there was something going on. For one thing, our relationship was wrong. It was very wrong. And I felt conviction about what we were doing, and he felt nothing about it, and I kind of just went with his flow. But the day we got married, one of my girlfriends that was in the wedding, he couldn't take his eyes off of her. And that was the first time I actually saw something. And I just blew it off. I didn't think anything about it. But within days of marriage, I was really figuring it out.
What was it like for you?
I didn't know what it was, to be honest with you. I was really very clueless about stuff. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what to make of that. I knew what it felt like to see my husband staring down one of my girlfriends. That was horrible. I hated it. Mm-hmm. I just assumed, like so many women do, everything's going to get better once we get married. He'll change. He'll really get with the program and blah, blah, blah. That's kind of the way we think. But he didn't. The things that were difficult for me, even living together, short-tempered, angry, really demanding. He was combative, all that stuff that should have been major red flags for me. I just assumed things would straighten out afterwards. And even the girl thing, looking at girls and stuff, I just assumed all that would just deal with itself. There's just no words. That's the problem. That was it. And that's basically what he was saying to me. He was telling me, this is why there's so much hostility in our home.